Carl Becker. Hello, YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you. We're fighting. We're going to fight like you never saw before.
If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before. If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
And be tough, and be nasty, and be mean if we have to. And be nasty, and be nasty, and be nasty. And be mean if we have to. Be tough, and be tough, and be mean if we have to.
Fuck around?
You'll find out.
Fuck around?
You'll find out. You see, I'm so loyal to people. Maybe I'm loyal to a fault, but I'm so loyal to people that when somebody's slightly disloyal to me, I look upon it as a great act of horror.
And how are you different than you were 3 or 4 years ago?
Well, I used to say, and in fact, I think I said in my first book that, and maybe this was foolish, but I really meant it, that someday I'd like to maybe lose everything for a period of time to see who's loyal and who's not loyal. And frankly, I found out a lot of things.
Did you find out who's loyal and not
I
loyal?
tell you what, and you can't guess it. You can't predict it. You think certain people would be loyal no matter what, and it turns out that they're not. And you just can't predict it. It's very difficult.
And that
I think I would have treated people differently. I think that, some of the people that were most loyal to me are people that I didn't think would be. Some of the people that were least loyal to me are people that I think I would have treated them differently. I think I would have treated different groups differently. I would have wiped the floor with the guys that weren't loyal, which I will now do, which is great. I love getting even with people, but I will.
Slow up. You love getting even.
Love getting even, people.
You don't believe in the eye for the eye. You do.
No.
I know you well enough. I think you do. But anyway,
But tell me, you're going to get even with some people. Because
yeah, I know. If given the opportunity, I will get even with some people that are disloyal to me.
Come on, Governor. Even though you didn't endorse me.
He's not forgotten.
I never forget.
Alright, good evening, patriots and digital soldiers and warriors around the world. Good evening. No, your eyes do not deceive you. I am actually live. Yes, I am actually live in front of you right now. Yeah, when was we last live? Like 2 weeks ago? Week ago? I lose track. My head's been in work and researching online and stuff like that. And to be honest, I wasn't actually planning to do a show tonight either, because the weather was lovely outside, and I was like, I'm going to go out and enjoy this lovely summer evening, and, got home, and luckily I'd already, because I had a show prepped that I was going to do yesterday, but bailed out because I ended up, going out and enjoying the weather. But then I got home in time to, be able to go live from 11 o'clock here in the UK. Here we are. And tonight we are going out on Clout Hub. Everybody out in Clout Hub that's lurking, good evening. We are going out on Foxhole. We have already got me over in Foxhole. Good to see you, friend. Good to see you, a long time follower. We are also going out on D-Live. Good evening, Becca. Harold Becca over in D-Live. We are also going out on Rumble, our platform of choice. Great platform, Rumble. If anybody's not signed up watching the show currently, please do. It is an awesome platform for streamers. We are also going out for, get ready for this one, YouTube. I was thinking earlier on, and I was like, do you know what? Now I don't kind of talk the clickbaity stuff these days. I'm gonna go out on YouTube and see how it goes. I don't hold doubts that they might try and zap me, but we're only talking about the legal stuff, to be honest, and law is law and all that, and a few other theories behind that. So yes, we are going out on YouTube. There's somebody currently lurking over in YouTube, so if you are watching, thank you for joining us. Anyone who watches the replay on YouTube, if all goes well with tonight's show, I will stream out on YouTube or like all the other channels. I'm hoping now that YouTube are kind of learning their lesson from getting beat downs from Rumble, and dropping the censorship. Maybe we can go full time on YouTube. Let's see what happens. And also, we're going out on Twitch. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 channels. I make that I'm going out on. Wow, 6 channels tonight. It's all about getting the information out there and getting the good analysis out there, the non-clickbait analysis, the non-black pill analysis, the non-doomer analysis. If you are somebody that is black-pilled, if you are a doomer, just to give you a heads up, you're probably not going to enjoy this show. I've never been one for the viewers, and especially as we dropped many when I decided to stop posting the clickbait stuff a couple of years ago, which was quite interesting. But yes, we have an information-packed show ahead. Everything from, did Trump and Farage catch them all the way to Trump's indictment regarding the classified, unclassified documents. So yeah, we've got a good bit of information. Now I want to start off with 2 secs. I do want to start off with, we're going to be spending a lot of time going between the UK and the US today. Tonight's theme of the show is very much UK US orientated. Shout out to Becca who's now over in Foxhole, for dropping the phone. Thank you very much, Becca. Much appreciated. Somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, what do you cover when it comes to the UK? Obviously, my show name is UK Neil, so people, would think I would cover UK news, which I did when I first started streaming. But then I started digging into Trump more and more and more, and the more I dug into Trump, the more I just went down this absolute cavalcade rabbit hole of Trump, FBI, DOJ, and much more, especially these last couple of years. Those of you that followed me all the way through, know that I've spent a lot of time researching Trump and, joining the dots between Trump, the FBI, the DOJ, and so forth. Good evening to Renee over in D-Live. Thank you for joining us, Renee. So, I've been down that kind of USA rabbit hole with Trump, DOJ, and the criminal side of things in the US the last couple of years. Now and again, when things perk up in the UK, I will cover it. and that's why we're going to cover some of the UK stuff tonight in connection with the US. I found with the UK, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm gonna give a little speech on the UK. Why do I not cover so much in the UK these days? Whole main reason being because there wasn't really many jots to join. As far as I could see, the UK swamp. There was little moments. Where the good guys in the UK would win, or the good guys in the UK would get a win. But the trouble is, when it comes to the difference between the UK and the US is the Patriots of the US have got brains on them. You find pretty much, and I'm not saying every Patriot in the UK is dumb or anything like that, but you generally find UK, or those that claim to be UK Patriots, have got more emotion than, standing ground, as in, actually researching. I find that a lot of UK Patriots can't put the emotion aside and, can't join the dots to what's happening. I just find that generally. That's not aimed at anybody in particular. That's just the general thing I find. And on the other side of things, when it comes to the Patriot scene in the UK, if you look at the history with the likes of the EDL and Britain First and these type of groups, a lot of my American friends may have heard of them, you may not have done, but certainly any British patriots that are watching will have done. When it comes to the patriot groups in the UK, they're very much like the US, like the Proud Boys and these militia groups in the US. They're all controlled by the bad guys in the swamp. Britain First and EDL and Tommy Robinson, the whole reason that the UK swamp's been able to achieve what it achieves is because, all the schmucks fell for Tommy Robinson and this, that, and the other, Never been a fan of Tommy Robinson. I may get some flack in the comments after the show, whatever. Not really too bothered, but, I've never been one to go with the whole Tommy Robinson stuff. And generally, there's no real UK patriot groups out there that have the brains to, fight through politics. No, they either want to get drunk and cause violence, or they believe, getting drunk, hanging your beer belly out, flying a Union flag, screaming "Rule Britannia" means that they're a patriot. So for me, it's kind of like during Brexit, 2016 to 2018 was great. It was like, yeah, we was going somewhere, and then I just started seeing this whole, and I don't get black-pilled about much, but everything you could see coming from the UK was very black-pilling. There wasn't much to look to. But there's been a few things, and there's been a few things where I've gone back in time, predominantly the last couple of years in connections with UK politicians, where I'm going to join some dots, hopefully join some dots for you tonight, and some theories that I have between the relationship between the United States and the UK. But that said, something as I said, there's not really been much happening in the UK, but there's something been going on in Scotland, and it has been for a while now. So we had this news breaking just a few days ago. So okay, let's give a little backdrop here. So around February, March time, Nicola Sturgeon resigns from the SNP. She was the Scottish First Minister. For my American friends, basically the political leader, the equivalent to a Prime Minister, or the equivalent to a president. She was the leader of the SNP, and she was the First Minister of Scotland. So around February, March time, Nicola Sturgeon resigns, to which people like myself and people that have kind of followed this have gone, wow, this is great. This is awesome. Nicola Sturgeon's resigning. The Wicked Witch and, Jimmy Krankie is stepping down. The misery of Scotland may end finally. And not long after that, I would say probably about a month or so later, her husband, Nicola Sturgeon's husband, was arrested to do with financial irregularities in the SNP, and that was around April, May time. Her husband was arrested, and then literally as soon as that happened, the accountants, the auditors for the SNP all resigned. So there was nobody overlooking the financial laws within the SNP. They all resigned. And then we had the news here a few days ago that now the former First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has been arrested in a finances inquiry. Former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been arrested in connection with the ongoing investigation into the funding and finances of the SNP. Police confirmed a 52-year-old woman was taken into custody as a suspect and is being questioned by detectives. It follows the arrest and subsequent release of her husband, ex-SNP chief executive Peter Murrell, in April. A spokeswoman for Miss Sturgeon confirmed she had attended a police interview by arrangement on Sunday. The former SNP leader, who stood down in March, was then arrested and questioned by officers who had been investigating for the past 2 years what happened to more than £600,000 of donations given to the party by independent activists. Independence activists. Now, when it says independence, that means activists within Scotland that are pushing for Scotland to break away from the United Kingdom. The spokeswoman said Nicola Sturgeon has today, Sunday the 11th, by arrangement with Police Scotland, attended an interview where she was to be arrested and questioned in relation to Operation Branchform. Nicola has consistently said she would cooperate with the investigation if asked to and continues to do so. By the way, if you hear a little bit of a buzzing noise in the background, I've got my fan on. If it's too loud, let me know, because it is quite hot in here. SNP MP Angus MacNeil has joined the opposition parties in calling for Miss Sturgeon to be suspended from the party, arguing that this soap opera has gone far enough. Officers searched Miss Sturgeon's home and the SNP headquarters in Edinburgh on the 5th of April, with Mr. Murrell being arrested before later being released without charge pending further investigation. A luxury motorhome which sells for about $110,000 was also seized by police from outside the home of Mr. Murrell's mother in Dunfermline. Almost 2 weeks later, the SNP treasurer Colin Beattie, I didn't know about that. Colin Beattie was also arrested and released without charge while further inquiries were being carried out. Mr. Beattie resigned as a party treasurer shortly afterwards. I'd say flipped. Miss Sturgeon, Mr. Murrell, and Mr. Beattie were the first 3 signatories on the SNP accounts, and the arrest of the former minister has been widely expected, although there was no indication of when it was going to happen. Under the Criminal Justice Scotland Act of 2016, police can release a suspect for further investigation, but they can be rearrested at a later date. A spokesman for the SNP said the party would not comment on Miss Sturgeon's arrest, adding these issues are subject to a live police investigation. Miss Sturgeon served as Scotland's First Minister for more than 8 years after succeeding Alex Salmond in the wake of the independence referendum in 2014. She announced on the 15th of February that she would be standing down as both SNP leader and First Minister once a successor was elected, with Humza Yousaf winning the contest to replace her. Miss Sturgeon said at the time that she knew in my head and in my heart that it was the right time to go. More like she could sense she was going to get arrested because they'd been doing dodgy stuff with the money for quite some time. Scottish Conservative Chairman Craig Hoy said the SNP was engulfed in murkiness and chaos and called on Mr. Yousaf to suspend his predecessor from the party. The SNP MP for Eilinen and La, I butchered that, apologies. Angus MacNeil also called for Miss Sturgeon to be suspended, writing on Twitter, "This soap opera has gone on for long enough. Nicola Sturgeon suspended others from the SNP for an awful lot less. Time for political stance until the investigation ends either way." Labour Shadow Scottish Secretary Ian Murray described the developments as deeply concerning and said the police inquiry must be allowed to proceed without interference. Police Scotland launched their Operation Branchform investigation 2 years ago after complaints were made about what happened to £666,954 that was donated to the SNP by activists for a future independence referendum campaign. The party's accounts later showed it had just under $97,000 in the bank at the end of 2019 and total net assets of £272,000. Pounds, that is. Last year, it emerged Mr. Murrell gave a loan of more than £100,000 to the SNP to help out with a cash flow issue after the last election. The SNP had repaid about half the loan by October of that year, but still owed money to Mr. Murrell, although it has not said how much. Miss Sturgeon is the third high-profile arrest. Her husband, Peter Murrell, was previously arrested and released without charge, so was the party's former treasury, Colin Beattie. This is a live case, so there's a limit to what journalists can report. But politically, there's no doubt this is a big blow to Scotland's governing party. So there you go. I mean, you know, for the I want somebody arrested crowd, well, I'll get much bigger in the UK, really, than the former First Minister getting arrested for financial irregularities. So, you know, that perked my ears up, and I was like, okay, seems to be something going on of a bit of swamp draining, particularly in Scotland, which is interesting because a certain somebody owns golf courses in Scotland, and not too recently visited Scotland. The man himself that likes to wear a wire for the DOJ, one Donald J. Trump. So, you know, do I think that this is something to do with him? Likely not, but interesting to think of nonetheless that the man that wears a wire goes over and suddenly we start seeing the SNP being arrested. And I have my theories about certain other politicians in the UK that we're going to get to. Okay, where are we at now? Okay, let's have a look. Okay, let's go with the... Okay, do you know what? I'm going to cover the indictment stuff. I'm not going to cover too much with the indictment. Kyle, aka Just Human, did a great show last week, or a few days ago, I believe, on the Trump indictment regarding Prosecutor Jack Smith. While there's many emotional folk that are, oh my god, I can't believe it. Us Anons are like, wow, yeah, it's fucking amazing. So it's quite a difference of emotions. You know, the Anons that have done the research are quite cozy. The emotional MAGA folk are up in arms and, you know, threatening over Trump. We know he's going to be fine. But I'm going to basically cover this very quickly and nip it in the bud because, again, you know, like Durham, you know, the person to watch when it comes to Durham is Kyle, Just Human. In fact, he'd done 10, I think it was like 10 shows breaking down the whole Durham report. So this was a thread by Dawson Esfield. Okay, if you haven't followed Dawson yet, you should do. Also checking out his website, butnothingishappening.com. Dawson is a great researcher. And he can get you thinking. He can turn the whole looking glass the other way around. So you're looking at everything from a completely different angle. Dawson's work is incredible. If you are on Twitter, make sure you give him a follow. So Dawson Esfield did a thread on the indictment, which we're gonna go through very quickly, and then I'll leave the indictment stuff. Not because I think it's something bad. You know, Trump's it's already broken to bits. There's going to be nothing else come. It's not even going to get to trial, I don't think. But we'll cover the indictment anyway, because we've got a lot of people out there that'll be throwing the emotions out without even reading the actual indictment. So let's quickly go through the indictment. Let me just check that we're still out there on Rumble, out there on YouTube. Hopefully they haven't shut me down yet. No, we're still there. We've had 2 viewers on there. Happy days, happy days. Let me just make sure. By the way, for the guys that are watching over in Rumble, I hit the right button this time. We're actually live on my channel. We've got 11 watching at the moment. That is cool. That is cool. Yeah, I hit the right button this time, so you guys can actually watch it live instead of hitting my personal channel button. Okay, so the indictment is up. Hat tip to Mr. Tim Null. So this was the actual indictment of Donald J. Trump, United States versus Donald J. Trump. So it looks like the only evidence is the audio recordings from a Trump sting and a testimony of several employees, aides, and lawyers. A variety of Trump caused the boxes to be moved stuff that in no way confirms he put the classified documents in the boxes. I just want to check that that isn't... Okay, so then next we have... So Trump's knowledge is evidenced by Trump employee 2 sending a text claiming, "I'm sorry, POTUS, had my phone." That doesn't sound like a setup at all. So here it is here. The USA, which detonated the information in a document. Norta text, Trump employee 2, "I opened the door and found this." As in the documents. This is the documents talking about, okay? Oh no. Trump employee replied, Trump also attached 2 photographs he took of the spill. Trump employee 2 replied, oh no, and "I'm sorry, POTUS, had my phone." One of the photographs, text to Trump employee 2, is depicted below with the visible classified information redacted. Trump's unlawful retention of document is charged in count 8 of this indictment. You could see how the staffer wants to figure out a way. This is the guy that's just been mentioned. You could see how the staffer wants to figure out a way to release this classified information that wins his case. Trump says declassify it, making sure it is on the recording that it isn't declassified because he didn't declassify it. So we have the back and forth between Trump and his employee here. Trump says, well, with the senior military official, let me see that. I'll show you an example, he said, that I wanted to attack country A. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look, this was him. They presented this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. All right, so wow. Trump, we looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff, pages long. Look. Staffer. Wait a minute. Let's see here. Staffer laughed the yeah. Trump, I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know, Staffer. Except it is like highly confidential. Staffer, yeah. Trump, secret. This is secret information. Look at this. You attack and, by the way, isn't that incredible? Yeah. I was just thinking because we were talking about it, and you know, he said he wanted to attack country A, and what? You did? This was done by military and given to me. I think we can probably write. Staffer, I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try. Trump, declassify it. Staffer, figure out. Yeah. Trump, see, as president, I could have declassified it. Staffer, yeah, laughter. Now, Trump, now I can't, you know, but this is still a secret. Staffer, yeah, laughter. Now we have a problem. Trump, isn't that interesting? PAC representative, they may as well have said swamp creature. During the meeting, Trump commented that an ongoing military operation in country B was not going well. Trump showed the PAC representative, as somebody that Swamp, as Dawson says, a classified map of country B and told the PAC representative that he should not be showing the map to the PAC representative and to not get too close. The PAC representative did not have a security clearance or any need to know classified information about a military operation. A significant portion of the indictment is used to show Trump's statement in opposition to leaking of classified information. It has always been a leak hunt. On February 16, 2017, 4 years before Trump's disclosures of classified information set forth, Trump said at a press conference, "The first thing I thought of when I heard about it, how does the press get this information? It's classified. How do they do it? You know why? Because it's an illegal process, and the press should be ashamed of themselves. But more importantly, the people that gave out the information to the press should be ashamed of themselves, really ashamed." I'm sure that that is what Trump Employee 2 testified to. But does anyone believe that is what really happened? I'm sure Trump Employee 2 was just being helpful in efforts to make it look like Trump knew about the classified materials. So convenient, and the involvement of a Trump representative, likely one of the lawyers in contact with Nara. Now, just a side note, it's always about lawyers. Every time Trump is either impeached, indicted, whatever it may be, it's the lawyers, as well as other swampies. It's always the lawyers. His lawyers around him are getting so used to it that they don't want to represent him. Every time Trump is with a lawyer, he's wearing a wire. He's wearing a wire and he's passing it on to the DOJ. So it's always about the lawyers. Lying to the feds, making it look like he was protecting Trump. This is the lawyer. So convenient in the involvement of a Trump representative, likely one of the lawyers in contact with Nara. So on here, Norta text Trump Employee 2 about the photograph Trump Employee 2 had provided to Trump, stating he mentioned about a picture of the boxes. He wants me to see it. Trump Employee 2 replied, calling you shortly. On November the 25th, 2021, Trump Employee 2 text Norta about Trump's review of the contents of his boxes, asking, has he mentioned boxes to you? I delivered some, but I think he may need more. Do you ask if he'd like more in Pine Hall? Pine Hall was an entry room in Trump's residence. Norta replied in 3 successful text messages, nothing about boxes yet. He has one he's working on in Pine Hall, and knocked out 2 boxes yesterday. Lying to the feds, making it look like he was protecting Trump. This is what he believes the lawyer is doing, which is Trump Employee 2. I think Dawson is saying Trump employee 2 is the lawyer. On January 17, 2022, employee 2, Nauta gathered 15 boxes from Trump's residence, loaded the boxes in Nauta's car, and took them to a commercial truck for delivery to Nara. When interviewed by the FBI in May 2022 regarding the location and movement of boxes before the production to Nara, Nauta made false and misleading statements as set forth in count 38 of this indictment, including falsely stating he was not aware of Trump's boxes being brought to Trump's residence for his review before Trump provided 16 boxes to Nara in January 2022. B. Falsely stating that he did not know how the boxes that he and Trump employed to brought from Trump's residence to the commercial truck for delivery to Nara. That's the National Archives Association, by the way, Nara. On January 17, 2022, had gone to the residence, and C, when asked whether he knew where Trump's boxes had been stored before they were in Trump's residence and whether they had been in a secure location, Nauta falsely responded, I wish I could tell you. I don't know. I honestly just don't know. When the 15 boxes that Trump had provided reached Nara in January 2022, Nara reviewed the contents and determined that 14 boxes contained documents with classification markings. Specifically, as the FBI later determined, the boxes contained 197 documents with classification markings, of which 98 were marked secret, 30 marked top secret, and the remainder were marked confidential. Some of those documents also contained SCI and SAP markings. As always, the swampy lawyers take the best notes when they're trying to set up their clients. Trump is referring to David Kendall, the Hillary lawyer who deleted 30,000 emails. On May 11, 2022, the grand jury issued a subpoena to the office of Donald J. Trump, requiring the production of all documents with classification markings in the possession, custody, or control of Trump or the office of Donald J. Trump. Two attorneys representing Trump, Trump Attorney 1 and Trump Attorney 2, informed Trump on the May 11th subpoena, and he authorized Trump Attorney 1 to accept service. On May 2022, Nauta entered the storage room at 3:47 and left approximately 34 minutes later, carrying one of Trump's boxes. Seems interesting. Trump wanted to be on site when Attorney 1 searched the boxes, but didn't want Attorney 2 to help, letting Attorney 1 have this opportunity. So Trump called Attorney 1 on the phone to get him to confirm that he was coming the next day to review the boxes for classified information. We want to bet those wires were tapped and Trump made a perfect phone call. On 1st of June 2022, Trump spoke with Trump Attorney 1 by phone and asked whether Trump Attorney 1 was coming to Mar-a-Lago Club the next day for exactly what purpose. Trump Attorney 1 reminded Trump that Trump Attorney 1 was going to review the boxes that had been transported from the White House and remained in storage at the Mar-a-Lago Club, so that Trump Attorney 1 could have a custodian records certify that the May 11th subpoena had been complied with fully. Sounds like Trump Attorney 1 was being tested by Trump. Trump Attorney 1 is Evan Corcoran. Trump Attorney 2 is probably Christina Bobb, but that's from memory. I haven't gone through to confirm details. Trump made sure to meet with Corcoran. Anyone really believe Trump instructed him to pluck out the bad documents? Bob must be Attorney 3. She signed the certification without doing the search based on Corcoran's word that he searched it. I wonder why Corcoran didn't want to sign his own life away based on the search. Because he wanted someone else to blame for it. We get a vague list of the documents. I'll have to continue this later time. Which, I think... yeah, he did some more later on. But... it's not, when you think of Trump being indicted, when you read the indictment, it's more so how Trump handled the documents. And to be honest, legally, he hasn't done a damn thing wrong. He as president, he could declassify documents that are in his possession, and he could take those documents. But again, what this actually is Trump setting precedent for what's to come. And I'm going to play a piece here from Kyle. This was because I had my videos in order to This is about Trump setting precedent, or as Kyle, aka Just Human, would say, templates. I'm gonna play you a little clip here that Kyle put up on his Rumble channel and his Substack, where he's basically just recounted templates, the fantastic Substack that he actually wrote, which was all about setting the templates to arrest Hillary Clinton. Again, you know, when Trump cries witch hunt in his truths, he's not talking about him. He's talking about the witch hunt, the biggest witch hunt of all time, which is the witch hunt of Hillary Clinton. Witch hunt, which is being hunted. So this is Kyle for about 6-7 minutes talking about templates. Have a listen.
Say is that the this templates article has really been on my mind lately with this news of a Trump indictment. And when I wrote the templates article, I thought it would go this far to where it looked like Trump would be indicted, but I figured he wouldn't be indicted. I figured, but it would just be this narrative event where everybody thought Trump would be indicted, and that would be enough. That I didn't think there needed to be a template of actually Trump being indicted and us going through that. I just thought the threat of it, the narrative of it would be enough to accomplish what needed to be accomplished to set us up for indictment of other high officials. And that's what I figured the goal was. I figured that some of the legal stuff that needed to be established, some of the unprecedented situations that needed to be created in order to establish a process and a precedent for the process, meaning the template. That's what I'm referring to in templates. I thought that that could all be accomplished without Trump actually being indicted. And I think,
again, just to remind that, you know, there's a good few of us, including Kyle, myself, and you know, others, Burning Bright, and you know, a lot of the other researchers, you know, the guys on Twitter, Mean G1 and Gugulathu Malungu, and that have said for so long now, what Trump is doing is setting a precedent. He is setting the stage for Hillary's arrest. Now, we don't have a date on this. I mean, you know, day by day, it looks like, you know, we're coming to some sort of end game, and it's not just about the takedown of Hillary. There's a whole lot more in it. It's the takedown of the swamp. It's the takedown, you know, of the guys that have tried to destroy America for so long. But what Trump is doing is showing the brainwashed sheep out there, if it can happen to me, well, then why can't it happen to Hillary Clinton? You know, the world now has seen Trump indicted twice. Right? So now the world's seen that. Trump's now said, you know, you hear these words of, you know, Trump's historic indictment. Trump's historic indictment. And, you know, he's the first prime minister. He's the prime minister. I've got prime minister in my head. He's the first president to ever be indicted for such and such. Yeah, it's the first time it's happened, and it ain't going to be the last, because now it's happened to Trump. It can happen to anyone. It could happen to George W. Bush. It could happen to Obama. It could happen to Hillary Clinton.
I was wrong about that. And I think I stopped myself short of considering that, because it's evident to me that Trump is a longtime DOJ asset since at least the 70s, or at least.
And again, this is the thing so many people don't get. You know, you hear Con Inc. They have no, they wouldn't even, it wouldn't even register on their radars that Trump is an FBI asset. The evidence is there. He's been doing it since the late 70s, and his family was working with the FBI long before him. Okay, may I remind you of Dr. John Trump, who took possession of Tesla's belongings for the FBI. So many people out there that are throwing the emotions out all the time, They don't want to hear that. They hate hearing it. The Trump's an FBI informant. It changes the game completely. If you're somebody that's brainwashed by fake news 24 hours a day, and suddenly you're told the Trump's an FBI informant, well, yeah, it's going to hit you hard. But you need to know the truth. Whether you're on the liberal Democrat side or whether you're on the Republican Trump supporter side. Trump is an FBI informant. Whether you like it or not, that's what he is. And it changes the game completely of everything you've seen and everything you've known.
The 80s, probably started before that in the 70s. And I figured DOJ is not going to indict Trump. They're not going to indict Batman. But they have, as you know. And a lot of people came to me. I mean, dozens of people who read my templates article messaged me or whatever and said, hey, I think it's going to go all the way to Trump. I think that Trump's going to be indicted to establish the template. And I'm like, nah, I don't think it goes that far. And I get in a little bit of an argument with people about whether or not it would go that far. And a lot of people almost convinced me. They really did. I was resistant to it. And with the news of Trump being indicted, I'm looking back at it and thinking about what I was getting at. And I so wanted to post it yesterday, but I didn't want to self-promote off of a Trump indictment kind of thing. Like that seems improper. I'll let the DeSantis campaign do that, which is what they did. But I truly believe that if anything in this article that I wrote is worth remembering, that it's this section right here. That the Mar-a-Lago raid, the filter team, the special master who ended up getting appointed and then struck down later. It's all good news. And even including the special master being struck down in the 11th Circuit court ruling was good news to me. And you can see it as good news as long as you think big picture and you defect from these news narratives. Thanks to all this stuff that I listed in this article and what has happened since, we now have precedents for search warrants being served on major media.
Bingo.
That happened with Project Veritas. Now let's do it to some others. A president's former attorney, Michael Cohen, a former president's personal attorney, Rudy, a former president's residence, Mar-a-Lago. And now we have a precedent of a former president being indicted. A filter team and a special master was used in each one of these cases that I just listed. What do you want to bet we see one appointed in this new one? Or at least Trump trying to get one. And I believe it's a template. I believe it is a template to go after the Clintons, Obama, their attorneys, their media, and all the people who assisted them in their crimes against the United States and we the people. It's a template to go after them. And when I look back at this article and I think back to it, man, I just get this sense nothing can stop what's coming. I'm like, there's such a pattern here. And it perfectly fits with Trump saying that he'll take all the slings and arrows for us. He's really brought this on himself for the service of this country, I believe. I wrote this article and gave it this subtitle, When FBI Raids Are Actually Good News. And I don't know how many people actually caught the double meaning that is there. There's a double meaning to that subtitle. The surface meaning is kind of like, oh, I'm saying that the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago was good news. And I am. I'm saying that the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago was actually good news, and a lot of people missed it. I'm saying it's good news because of the templates that it set. But what I truly mean with that subtitle is to say when a time in the future, when FBI raids are good news, it's going to be this time period. When there are FBI raids on the residences of the Clintons, for example, on Mark Elias, on some others like that were involved in this crime that we just read the Durham report about. When they are raided by the FBI in the future.
The Durham report is a huge part of... So Trump sets the template. Trump sets the precedent. Barr is giving the ammo to fulfill what's needed to meet that template, that precedent. You know, you got so many people that, you know, the emotional types that are, or the black pills that are like, well, nothing happened from the Durham report. That was a waste of 6-7 years or whatever it was. And they haven't read the damn thing. They haven't bothered to take the time to actually read the report. Now, if people bothered to take the time to repeat the report, or if you don't want to sit there and read it yourself, then obviously Kyle has done up to 10 parts reading that. Go to Kyle's Telegram channel. You'll find them all linked there, or his Twitter. And I have just... by the way, the link I posted was to Kyle's templates Substack. Go read it. Go check it out after the show. You can learn a lot from it if you don't fully grasp the whole template precedence explanation here. But the Durham report gives the ammo to fulfill the precedent. That's what it does. And let's just say when Trump wins in 2024, and when, I don't know, Bill Barr or, I don't know, maybe even James Comey could end up being, you know, Attorney General. But you know, when a new Attorney General comes in for the new Trump administration, they can then take that Durham report and, you know, finish off the witch hunt. If you know what I mean, which you should do.
When this template is used to go after them, that's why I said when FBI raids are good news. Because I'm looking forward to this time period.
Mm-hmm. That's Kyle, Just Human, aka Just Human. As I said, I put the link in to the chats there for his Substacks, for his templates. Substack, go and check it out. Make sure you can also subscribe to his Substack. I'm a proud monthly subscriber to his Substack. Kyle does some great work. Like, Kyle is my favorite streamer right now. Because there's none of the emotional bullshit. There's none of the clickbait bullshit. You know, Kyle will take a Durham report and he will spend hours reading it. He will make that effort to read it and break it down. Same with the Trump indictment. And when you actually listen to the court filings and the paperwork and the indictments themselves, there's a whole lot of actual, truthful, lawful information in there. That's not, you know, it's not clickbait. It's not Nasara Jasara. It's in the indictments. It's in the reports. So, you know, if you haven't checked out Kyle Just Human, make sure you do. He goes out on Rumble, DLive. What else does Kyle go live on? I always watch him on Rumble. Rumble, DLive, Foxo. He's on Foxo as well. He's got his Substack. He's also on Badlands Media. Does a great show on Sunday nights with Burning Bright. does the Patriot Power, or now I think it's just called Power Hour now, with BB and John, aka Patel Patriot. That's on Wednesday nights as well. So make sure you check out his work. Just carrying on also with the whole witch hunt narrative. Okay, so on the day of Trump's indictment officially pulling out there, because remember, just like the previous indictment, it was Trump that announced it to the world. It wasn't the DOJ. It wasn't Jack Smith. Trump was the person that announced his own indictment. Just remember that. Just remember that it wasn't the DOJ that announced it. It was Trump himself on Truth Social that announced his own indictment. So anyway, later on that day, the next day after he announced it on Truth Social, he gave a speech at Bedminster. And, you know, I think it was about 15 minutes long, this speech. And I watched the whole thing. And the clip I'm about to play you quite blew my mind. Listen, and bear in mind that this is a witch hunt. But which witch is being hunted?
Under the Presidential Records Act, Biden's actions fell under a much stricter Federal Records Act, which has very, very tough criminal penalties. Yet nothing happens to Crooked Joe. Nothing happened. Have you heard anything about the big search for his documents? No, only me. Most infamously of all, Hillary Clinton set up an illegal private server in her basement. You never heard this story.
Isn't it funny how more and more and more we keep hearing Hillary Clinton? Ever since this Trump indictment, there's a lot of media out there that are going, well, if they can indict Trump, well, surely they can indict Hillary over the email scandal, the 33,000 emails, the phone she broke, the files she bleached. Surely there's something she could do about that. Now, I want you to listen carefully what Trump says about the 2016 election and why Hillary not winning it stopped something. Listen carefully.
With the deliberate intention of violating public information laws so she could hide her pay-for-play scandals at the Clinton foundations or whatever. Hillary stored vast quantities of classified and sensitive information on her illicit server. Some of it happened to leak. It leaked into Anthony Weiner's computer. Remember Anthony Weiner?
Oh, we've now got Weiner up on deck. Is that a thing? Anthony Weiner's up on deck.
Into his computer. You don't want to be on his computer.
No,
and
you
all
don't.
of it was...
No, you don't, because his computer is so bad that when the police in New York looked into its contents, they were throwing up all over the place. It was that sick.
It was illegal because thankfully she was never president. She didn't have the powers to declassify. Thank you.
Now, I want you to listen to what he says there once more. So Hillary Clinton is breaking all sorts of laws with the whole email scandal. She had her own server in her basement. Remember, this is a story you never... In fact, I'm just going to play the whole thing again. This is a story you never heard, that Hillary Clinton had servers in her basement. And, you know, she was, you know, sending out and taking in classified information. That, as Secretary of State, you could end up being put in jail for. You could be indicted and slung in jail. If Hillary wins the 2016 presidency, well, they can't touch her as a president. No, they couldn't touch her. Especially if they made sure she was president for 8 years. But by Trump becoming president, that means anything Hillary did regarding the emails and her servers was in fact illegal because she was only Secretary of State. Listen carefully again to what he says.
Under the Presidential Records Act, Biden's actions fell under a much stricter Federal Records Act, which has very, very tough criminal penalties. Yet nothing happens to Crooked Joe. Nothing happened. Have you heard anything about the big search for his documents? No, only me. Most infamously of all, Hillary Clinton set up an illegal private server in her basement. You never heard this story. With the deliberate intention of violating public information laws so she could hide her pay-for-play scandals at the Clinton foundations or whatever. Hillary stored vast quantities of classified and sensitive information on her illicit server. Some of it happened to leak. It leaked into Anthony Weiner's computer. Remember Anthony Weiner? Into his computer.
Thank you very much, Sean Joe, for chucking us the cookie over on Foxhole. Much appreciated, Fred.
You don't want to be on his computer. And all of it was illegal because...
Has everybody seen the clip of Trump in 2012 talking about Anthony Weiner's laptop? I should have got that for this show, actually. Has everybody seen that clip where in 2012 Trump's doing a call-in interview? I don't know what it was on, CNN or whatever. And he brings up Anthony Weiner's laptop. And still to this day, and it's there, it's not manipulated. He talks about Weiner's laptop in 2012. And still to this day, everyone's like, how the hell did he know about Weiner's laptop in 2012? I guess it's the old magic of Trump, whatever way you want to look at it.
Thankfully, she was never president. She didn't have the powers to declassify. Thank you. Thank you.
Luckily, she didn't have the powers to declassify. Therefore, what she did was illegal.
She didn't have the powers to declassify. It's a big difference. And neither did Joe. You know, Joe didn't have your mind. Have a drink.
Watch the water and forget that stupid bollocks. I'm actually talking about the cute job. Watch the water. When Trump does this, there's a reason he does it. And there's a reason why we're told, watch the water by Q.
Neither did Joe. You know, Joe didn't have your mind.
Barr did it as well.
It's a little bit cooler than it was, but it's pretty hot out here. Thank you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Great birthday.
Yes. Happy birthday, President Trump. Belated happy birthday. So, that was rather interesting, wasn't it? The fact that Hillary's all over the place at the moment. As in, like, where they mention the Trump indictment, they keep mentioning Hillary. Which again just shows you the power of the precedent. That now even the media out there are going, well, if it can happen to Trump, why can't it happen to Hillary? Or Trump keep bringing up the Bill Clinton sock gate thing, which is where classified tapes, Bill Clinton hid classified tapes in his sock drawer at home. They were found later on. The swamp made sure that he wasn't prosecuted. The same with George W. Bush and the email scandal with connections to the 2004 election, I say it was, which ended up in a murder over the 2004 election, and then I just want to cover this as well because Trump also dropped an article. Did I keep it up here? I hope I did. Okay, we'll come to that in a minute. Trump, trying to get this to move. Okay, so Trump dropped this article on Truth Social, and it's from 2016. I'm just going to go through the first couple of paragraphs. I'm not going to read it all. I just want to give you an idea here. Top Clinton advisor sent top secret messages to her private account. Hillary Clinton's top national security and foreign policy staffer Jake Sullivan was one of the authors of messages that appeared on several Clinton email chains recently labeled top secret by the State Department, according to multiple intelligence sources who have seen the correspondence. Sullivan, then Deputy Chief of Staff to the Secretary of State, is now Senior Policy Advisor to the 2016 Democratic Front runner, Hillary Clinton, because this is from 2016, remember. Sullivan's lawyer, Beth Wilkinson, did not respond to a request for comment. Sullivan both initiated email conversations and also forwarded along messages with sensitive information, and he sometimes added additional content on the email chains in question. According to the sources, those chains are now maintained at the highest classification level for national security information, though the campaign has long maintained that they were not marked classified at the time they were sent. The news that Sullivan was among those sending sensitive information in some ways was unsurprising, given his position at the State Department and his closeness to Clinton. But if the email showed that he mishandled sensitive information, one of Clinton's closest aides could come in for further investigation and scrutiny by congressional investigators. I can only tell you that his, Jake Sullivan's, email account initiated a number of emails, said one source, who identified Sullivan but spoke on a condition of anonymity because of the sensitive nature of the issue. Since the emails have been withheld from public view, the senders' names are not a matter of public record. When asked to confirm Sullivan's participation in a top-secret email chain, a separate intelligence source familiar with the investigation did so, but with a caveat. The person in question is one of the primary participants and instigators, but by no means the only one, the source said. A third source said, as Sullivan was one of the about 3 individuals who sent such content to Clinton, it is unclear who else was involved in the email discussions. In a statement for this story, a State Department official said, "We are not going to speak to the content of these documents, including who sent them." Clinton campaign said the controversy around Clinton's email has been orchestrated for political gain. So, an interesting article to truth out from Trump, because it's all about getting her. Remember the hashtag we were putting about a few years back? Hashtag in it together. Break that down. In it to get her. Trump used that hashtag many times while he was president. Hashtag in it together. In it to get her. Or when he states witch hunt, it's not about him. Which witch is being hunted? It's her. An interesting article to drop. Oh, we'll come to Bojo in a minute. So to surmise, again, that whole difference of emotional reaction to the indictment of Trump this week. Many of us anons that have done the research on Trump and really understood what's going on here from a legal perspective and a law perspective, or the fact that Trump is an FBI informant, or the fact that we now have the Durham report, and the fact that, we've understood the precedents that have been set. The reaction to Trump's indictment from us was like, wow, this is awesome. This is amazing. This is great. If you were a nervous wreck MAGA follower or a MAGA supporter who was like, oh my God, I can't, it's like a whole different wave of emotions. It's quite funny to see people losing their shit over Trump being indicted. Whereas, the many of us like myself and, Kyle and Dawson or Mean Gene One or, Burning Bright or John Herald, the guys that are sitting cozy on this and know this is part of the bigger plan to take Hillary down. It's a great movie to watch. Q did say enjoy the movie, and that's what we're doing. We're taking the time to research and join the dots. So, more to come. Right, okay, let's do Boris Johnson and Farage. Actually, no, hang on a minute. Where are we at here? Okay, let's do Trump and Boris first. Okay, let's go with the whole UK-US connection. Okay, so we had news this week. This is not really connected as such, but I'm going to go through it anyway because it's interesting. Because of the term they use as well in this article. Boris Johnson's bombshell exit from Parliament leaves UK politics reeling. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has left chaos in his wake after quitting Parliament and accusing fellow lawmakers of ousting him in a witch hunt. Great choice of words. Former UK Prime Minister left chaos in his wake Saturday after quitting Parliament with a blast at fellow lawmakers he accused of ousting him in a witch hunt. Witch hunt! How interesting! What a perfect choice of phrase, considering what we've just spoke about. As opponents jeered, the Conservative government absorbed the shock of yet another Johnson earthquake, while a band of loyal supporters insisted Britain's divisive leader could still make a comeback. We're going to come to that. Two Johnson allies joined him in quitting the House of Commons, piling pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. So Johnson's walked away from politics, basically. He's walked away from the Conservative Party, right? So then I want to move on to this. This was from last month. Okay, now there's a lot of us that were watching this and were like, that's a very odd move. A very odd move. Boris Johnson, former PM, meets Donald Trump to discuss Ukraine. Why is the former Prime Minister meeting up with the former President to discuss Ukraine? Now, the media here, as we read it, is going to give their narrative. Do I think that that's the narrative behind this? No, I'm starting to think not. Boris Johnson went on tour in America a few weeks last month, and for some reason met up with Trump. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has met former President Donald Trump to discuss the situation in Ukraine. The meeting took place on Thursday during Mr. Johnson's visit to the United States, especially as this is after the first indictment. You know, if Boris, to me, if Boris was swamped, why the hell is he going to visit Trump? It just makes no sense. Logically, it makes no sense. This week, Mr. Johnson has also met Republican politicians in Texas and Trump's former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Now, that's interesting as well. To shore up support for Ukraine. Yeah, but why is he meeting Trump and Pompeo to get this support for Ukraine? I mean, it's not like Trump's won 2024 yet. We think so. But why he would be in 2023 asking for Trump support and Mike Pompeo support and then walks away from the Conservative Party? It just doesn't make sense. Mr. Trump has previously described Mr. Johnson as a friend, but their stances on the Ukraine war differ. Mr. Johnson was a vocal reporter visiting Ukraine several times, calling for the West to provide more weapons to the country. Now, we covered Ukraine, the Bidens, Hunter Biden being an FBI informant. Last show I did a couple of weeks ago, whatever that was. So if you want to know all about that, then go back and watch the last show. You can watch it on my private Rumble. I'll put the link out there. Mr. Trump, on the other hand, has previously refused to commit to sending military aid to Ukraine if he returned to the White House, and would not say who he thought should win the war. Talking about all the money gone out. The pair have met several times before, including on the sidelines of the G7 summit in France. When Mr. Johnson became Prime Minister, Mr. Trump described him as a good man, adding, they call him Britain Trump. Okay. So, I went back and I got some, I got the video footage of...
Wishes to a very good friend.
Okay, so do you all remember when Boris Johnson got COVID? I used that term lightly. When Boris Johnson got COVID. And Trump got up in one of his COVID press conferences and talked about how he was sending people over Boris. Well, yet again, I want you to listen very carefully because, again, Trump is having several conversations here. You know, surely everyone who watches his show is used to this now. Trump will have a conversation to those that hate him. He'll have a conversation to his MAGA Trump supporters. And he talks to us, the Anons, that do the research. You know, from the Q drops and all-round research. So listen carefully, again, to what Trump actually says about Boris Johnson back in 2020.
Wishes to a very good friend of mine.
Let me just... and, you know, from the get-go there, normally when Trump announces that somebody is a friend, that means that they're probably going to jail. I don't think so on this occasion, because of what follows up.
And a friend to our nation, Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We're very saddened to hear that he was taken into intensive care this afternoon, a little while ago. And Americans are all praying for his recovery. He's been a really good friend. He's been really something very special.
He's been really something special. Does that sound like the president, you know, wishing all the best to Boris Johnson? Why would he say he's really been something special? A very odd choice of words, considering he's just talking about a prime minister. I mean, I've not heard anybody else really say special about another world leader like that.
He's been a really good friend. He's been really...
and listen to the way he says good. He's been a really... He means it. He means it. He's been a really... It's Trump. When you listen to the tone of his voice, when he says he's been a really good friend, to me, that means he's been a really good friend to the United States.
Very special, strong, resolute, doesn't quit, doesn't give up. We have made tremendous progress on therapeutics. I had a fantastic call.
the way, for those out there that may be watching that still go, but Trump released that jab. Well, listen to what he says here about the therapeutics, right? You got jab fake news guys still cry to this day about Trump and the jabs, and don't even recognize the fact that he brought therapeutics into this as well.
Tremendous progress on therapeutics. I had a fantastic call today, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. And I've asked two of the leading companies, these are brilliant companies.
These are brilliant companies. What?
Ebola, AIDS, others, they've
dealt with Ebola and AIDS. Where did Trump pull them out the air from?
With the solutions and just have done incredible jobs. And I've asked them to contact London.
Okay, I've asked them to contact London. So, by what he says here, we're only at the stage where these specialists are going to contact London. They're not there. They're going to contact London, right? Watch what else plays out in this clip.
Immediately, they have offices in London, the major companies, but more than major, more than size, they're genius. And
they're genius. What? The guy's carrying therapeutics. I mean, they're basically doctors. I mean, I think it's doctors, you know, they save many, many lives as well, but why are they geniuses?
I had a talk with 4 of them today, and they speak.
I had a talk of 4 of them. Again, that sounds very odd to me.
A language that most people don't even understand.
Right, hang on. Wait, what? They speak a language that most people don't even understand. What the heck is this? I mean, don't worry, I've got a theory coming, but let's just say, for the sake of nobody knows what my theory is what the hell is he talking about? I always found it, I remember at the time when I watched it live, and I always found something very, very strange about this.
With 4 of them today, and they speak a language that most people don't even understand.
They speak a language that most people don't even understand.
But I understand something, that they've really advanced therapeutics and therapeutically, and they have arrived in London already.
I thought they were just making the calls. Wait, hang on, let's go back here. Let's go back.
We have made tremendous progress on therapeutics. I had a fantastic call today, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. And I've asked 2 of the leading companies, these are brilliant companies, Ebola, AIDS, others, they've come with the solutions and just have done incredible jobs. And I've asked them to contact London.
I thought we was at the stage of contacting London. So from contacting London to they're in London.
Whatever they need, and we'll see if we can be of help. And therapeutically, and they have arrived in London already. Their London office.
The hell?
Whatever they need, and we'll see if we can be of help. We've contacted all of Boris's doctors, and we'll see what is going to take place. But they are ready to go. But when you get brought into intensive care, that gets very, very serious with this particular disease.
Okay, so some very odd statements from the boss. You know, from the start of the conversation to they're going to make calls to they've landed in London to they say things that nobody else can understand, and the fact that Boris is a very special person to America. Okay, here comes my theory. Actually, I'm actually going to read it straight from my Telegram, which helps, to be honest. Good evening, Oinker. Welcome, and also Durfman over in Rumble. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. I have a theory here, and I'm going to read out what I posted in Telegram and every other platform. Where the hell is it now? There was something I posted. I actually put a whole paragraph in my Telegram, but where the hell is it gone? Ah, here it is. Okay. Okay, so here's my theory. And I'm reading this straight off Telegram. Was Boris gathering evidence the whole time? Why on earth would a former PM meet with the former president to discuss Ukraine? Boris used to be called the British Donald Trump by the British media. And the US media, by the way, as we read in an article just now. Because of the hair and because of his pro stance on Brexit. I'm thinking Boris may have been gathering evidence on the UK this whole time. Boris caught them all. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it. There's going to be a lot of people out there that go, what on earth are you talking about? I've always been kind of on the fence with Boris. 1 minute I'm in favour of Boris, 1 minute I'm against Boris, and I've never really been able to define Boris. What makes a good movie good actors? And yes, we're going to have the emotional types that will go, yeah, but Boris was responsible for lockdowns and Boris jabbed everybody. Again, the emotions before thinking, before building a bigger picture here. And we're going to come to more regarding Boris and a certain other politician and them catching the swamp. But allow me to explain. I think Boris may have passed on information to MI5, MI6, and then passed it on to the DOJ regarding the UK swamp. Which is why when Trump, remember Trump came over to Queen and acted as though he was the Lord and Manor of Buckingham Palace, remember when he stepped in front of the Queen and stuff. There is more to this than meets the eye. And pre-2020, Boris actually was ticking the boxes. He was going for Brexit. He was behind Brexit. He was pushing it. And obviously we had Farage and a Brexit party. And we're going to come to Farage. We got some good stuff on old Nigel here. I have completely changed my mind on Nigel Farage this week. 2019, Boris is going for it. Farage stands to split the two-tier party system with the Brexit party. Nigel Farage then basically holds his hands up and hands Boris the win, to which many of us went, what the fuck are you doing, Farage? And you're probably thinking the same, but I think you're going to think different by the end of my explanation here. Okay, so let's just put to bed Trump and Boris. Do I believe Boris has been working with Trump the whole time, been passing information to the DOJ? Do I find it a coincidence that the SNP has completely fallen to bits the moment Trump steps into Scotland? Do I find it a coincidence that Boris at this point of time has decided to step away from politics? There's going to be anti-Boris stories in the media. There's going to be, because, the media can't help themselves. We're thinking kind of outside the box here, but in context with what we already know goes on with America and how Trump drains the swamp, right? So I believe at this point now that Boris has been working with Trump the whole time, even ever since Boris was Prime Minister. Was Boris a globalist in the past? Potentially, but again, Trump has this way of getting the swampers or the globalists, whatever, to work with him. And I think that's what's happened here. And I will go on digs and I'm going to try and make those connections, just like I have with Farage and Trump, which I'm going to bring you in a bit. So let's go to Farage and Boris. So, again, I've kind of kept my head away from UK politics for a while, actually until this week, till I decided to go down rabbit holes and some research and join some dots. And I was having a conversation with my mum on the telephone. And, if my mum ends up watching this show, because she is in my Telegram, hi mum. And she said to me about, have you seen this video of Farage joining up with Boris? And this was the same day I was going into the whole Trump and Boris stuff. And I was like, wow. Wow. Hang on a moment. So Farage could be joining up with Boris for the next election. Wow. Don't just take my word on it. Listen to Nigel Farage yourself. Here we go.
Will he come back into your arms?
What I would say is this. We disagree on many things. We disagree on net zero. We disagree on mass migration, about which he's totally relaxed. But on the biggest political issue of our lifetimes.
But if these two join together, could they take down the UK swamp? Very much, possibly.
Brexit, we were on the same side. I think David Lammy made it perfectly clear yesterday that the Labour government's first priority is our relationship with the EU. They will take us back into single market rules.
We don't know that.
Well, I think we do.
Shut up, Susan.
No, we don't know that.
I think David Lammy's made it pretty
Shut up, Susan.
clear.
Can I just go back to my first question?
Yeah.
Shut up, Susan.
You literally on the record as saying Brexit has failed. And also, I just want to say...
Hang on a second. Finish the sentence.
Yeah.
Brexit has failed
Brexit
in the eyes of many of its voters because of the government.
Yeah, OK.
Because they failed to deliver.
And
they
yet,
failed to deliver
you
on
want
immigration.
to join up with the Prime Minister who is in charge of that failure.
I will repeat.
It's oh, what? What's her name? So I don't accidentally axe her. Who the hell is Becca going after that? That's oh god, Susan Reid, Susan something or other. She's she was partnered up with Piers Morgan for quite some time on the very same program, Good Morning Britain. She's a moron.
Repeat the point.
Yeah.
I disagree totally with him on immigration. They should have delivered what people voted for. He didn't do it, all right? I disagree with him on net zero, making the poor poorer.
Yeah.
But
what do you agree with him on?
Us being an independent country and not being part of a political union in Europe.
Who screwed up Brexit?
Boris Johnson has messed up the implementation of it, yes.
Right.
But
why would you want to go?
Because he's surrounded by swamp. Oh no, she won't be in the chats, Becca. She won't be in the chats. She's in my Telegram room and picks up information. She won't be in the chats. Susan doesn't get it. Susan doesn't get it. What Farage is saying is Boris was pro-Brexit. It screwed up. Because the swamp got involved. Because unfortunately, Trump's been draining the swamp, whereas nobody's really been draining the US swamp, well, from what I see until recently, looking at the S&P. So, what Farage is saying is yeah, Boris fucked it up because the UK swamp got involved. But Boris as a person wanted the UK to leave the EU. And this is blowing Susan's mind.
Into partnership with him?
Because I think 2 or 3 years down the line, we may have to refight this battle.
Would you, would you actually form a new party?
Well, there is a party out there already, Reform, it exists, it's the old...
Which is rather interesting.
Brexit party. I mean, look, he may choose not to do this, but what I will tell you is there are many, many sitting...
I love the fact that there's the picture of Trump and Farage in the background there as well.
Conservative MPs deeply disillusioned with the direction of their party.
Okay, so what Farage is announcing is that potentially him and Boris could team up. By the way, Two Guns Pete, stick around. You're going to learn a whole lot more about Farage and how he caught them all. Farage is talking about him and Boris joining up. Now, for those of you that obviously know the history of the Brexit Party, right? Did I this up? I didn't, but I'm going to get it. For those who know the history of the Brexit Party, so obviously Farage was involved in UKIP. He then he failed in the constituency he was running for, and then became more involved in I'm just looking for my and then became more involved in Brexit because obviously that was his goal, to get the UK out of the EU. And then, what, 2 years ago, year ago? Okay, so 2019, we have the general election, Brexit party steamrolling it, and Farage turns around and says, we're not going to run in these constituencies, so Boris can win. Okay? By the way, conveniently, Farage is talking about him and Boris get together at the same time. Trump's about to come back to the White House, which I don't think is any kind of coincidence. So after that election, Nigel Farage steps down as the leader of the Brexit Party. Brexit Party has since changed its name to the Reform Party. There is the same logo, stuff like that. It's called, the Reform Party. Farage is officially a part of it still, but he's not the leader of it anymore. He resigned from that position. And I don't find it a coincidence that the slogan for the Reform Party, as you will see here, is "Let's make Britain great again." Sounds very much the echoes of "Make America Great Again." It's rather interesting. I'm not saying that's a fact involved with this, but again, nothing is coincidence, and I find it interesting that we go from "Make America Great Again" to "Let's Make Britain Great Again." What do I think's going on here? Again, I think there's been certain... If Boris has been working with Trump this whole time, as Trump calls Boris a very special person, if Boris has been working with Trump this whole time, Nigel Farage has been in on this as well. If Trump knew he was going to be losing the 2020 election, because it was all part of the plan, spend 4 years red pilling everybody, and waking people up, then what would be the point of having the UK in that position to be strong? If you were going to, if the two people that were very close to Trump from the UK in terms of that they are not swamp, well then there would be no point in them doing anything until Trump comes back. So I don't find it a coincidence that now in mid 2023, the Nigel Farage is discussing the fact of him and Boris getting together and taking on the UK swamp. I don't find that a coincidence. As I said, normally when it comes to UK politics, I don't really much care for it, because there's a lot of blackpilling. And again, there's a lot of the UK patriots out there that go with their emotions before looking at the facts. But this has certainly pricked my ears up. And I find it interesting that we potentially could have Boris Johnson. Something may not happen for it. Maybe this is just Farage talking. But the potential of Boris and Farage running together to take on the UK swamp is quite a thing to look forward to. And I certainly would. So, talking of Farage, let's move on to the next subject. So again, I was, based on what I've just spoke about, I went down the Farage rabbit hole, because I was like, okay, if Farage and Boris have been working on a plan with Trump, just like everybody talks about Putin worked with Trump, Kim Jong-un worked on a plan with Trump, some say Xi works with Trump on a plan, and so forth, so forth. Well, why the hell can Boris and Nigel Farage? So anyway, I went down the Farage rabbit hole, and I was going through Farage's Wikipedia just to see if anything jumped out, and boy, did something jump out. Boy, did something jump out. Get ready for this rabbit hole. So where did it all start? This rabbit hole. Yes. Okay, so, and this one's gonna fry your brain, right? This is going to fry your brain. Again, if you want to know who the UK swamp is, stop going with the media names. The names everybody knows, right? I don't give a fuck about George Soros. Soros isn't dangerous. I don't think Soros is half as dangerous as the names that we don't know, which you're about to discover when it comes to UK swamp. So Nigel Farage comes to... Remember Nigel Farage came to the USA to support Trump in the 2016 election, right? You all remember that? He, where was it? He went to... Mississippi? Was it Mississippi? He went to... Yeah, it was Mississippi. He went to support Trump at the Trump rally in Mississippi. Got up and gave that big speech about, I don't normally tell people how to vote, but on this occasion, I'm going to say vote against her. Did he use the term witch? I might have to go back and watch that. So Nigel Farage comes to the US to support Trump in 2016. And one of his aides ends up being arrested on money laundering, fraud, and extortion. So Farage comes to the US, and the aide that's with Farage ends up being arrested on money laundering, fraud, and extortion by the DOJ. That Trump quicksand gets them every time. And I'll read it out for you. I'm just going to read you this. In May 2016, the 2016 presidential election, this is from Farage's Wikipedia. In May 2016, in a May 2016 interview with Robert Peston, Farage said, whilst he had reservations on the views and character of 2016 Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, if he were an eligible US voter, he would vote for Trump in the 2016 presidential election to prevent Hillary Clinton becoming president. In July 2016, Farage visited the Republican convention in Cleveland with his aide and office manager, George Cottrell. I want you to remember that name because we're about to find out all about George Cottrell. Both Farage and Cottrell appeared on American television and engaged in discussions with Trump's aides. When you say Trump aides, I think Dan Scavino. Before Cottrell was arrested by the FBI on 21 federal counts of fraud, money laundering, and extortion, Farage was unaware of Cottrell's alleged illegal activities, and his arrest by the FBI came as a shock. Cottrell's arrest left Farage unable to access his personal diary. Cottrell ultimately pleaded guilty to one count of wire fraud as part of a plea agreement with U.S. federal prosecutors and was sentenced to 8 months in U.S. federal prison and was fined $30,000. The crime had been committed before Cottrell joined UKIP. So, I want to bear in mind the fact that we all know that Trump wears a wire, that Trump is an FBI informant. Now, you're going to learn some history about George Cottrell here, and it's going to blow your mind. I will give my views on where Farage is involved with this at the end. So 2016, Nigel Farage comes over to support Trump for the 2016 election. They meet up with Trump's aides. Doesn't say they met up with Trump, but potentially they could have done. Next thing you know, George Cottrell is being carted off and serving 8 months in prison for fraud, money laundering, extortion. Trump caught George Cottrell. I want to say so. So, let's carry on down this little rabbit hole. Wow, it looks like this guy, Cottrell, Farage's UKIP aide, may have been led into the Trump quicksand quite on purpose. Cottrell has quite the swamp background. So this is from Steve. This is from George Cottrell's. This piece alone is going to fry your brain. So the guy that went with Farage to the United States in 2016, who got arrested on extortion, money laundering, and racketeering, George Cottrell, was listed as a director in a number of businesses from a young age, both in the UK and overseas, starting in 2013. Cottrell assumed a number of roles at banks, including Credit Suisse. Gee, what bank just hit the shitter? Credit Suisse, JP Morgan, and Banca Privada Diadora. Following the 2015 UK election, Cottrell was appointed Treasurer of the United Kingdom Independence Party. British swamp guy Cottrell has also British swamp guy Cottrell also has quite a swampy background and his own history. He was also Treasury for the Conservative Party and then UKIP, then goes to the US and ends up in jail. Trump and Farage caught them all. The connections this guy has is unbelievable. Cottrell was born in London, England, to an aristocratic family. His father, Mark Cottrell, a businessman and landowner from Gloucestershire, attended Gordonstown School with Prince Andrew, Duke of York. Now that's an interesting thing. George Cottrell's mother, the Honourable Fiona Watson, a daughter of Rupert Watson, 3rd Baron Manton, is a former glamour model and girlfriend of Charles, Prince of Wales, which is now King, unfortunately. So the father is mates with Andrew, the mother is friends with Charles. Cottrell's maternal uncle, Alexander Fermor Hesketh, 3rd Baron Hesketh, was the government chief whip in the House of Lords and served as a treasurer of the Conservative Party, but later defected to the UKIP party. This is quite a swamp, hey? So the guy, let me just backtrack here. So the guy that went with Farage to the States in 2016, George Cottrell, goes to the States, hangs out with Trump and his friends, then spends 8 months in jail for money laundering, racketeering, and whatever else the charges were, who has a mother that's friends with Prince Andrew, has a father that's friends with Charles, has an uncle that was the treasurer of the Conservative Party, and also the treasurer of the UKIP party. Cottrell was raised and educated... Don't stop here, by the way. Cottrell was raised and educated on the private land of Mestisk before attending Malvern College, from which he was expelled for illegal gambling. And then we have an article here, which we're going to cover here. So, by the way, this is Steve Cottrell here. This guy here. This is his Wikipedia. This is from 2017. Former Farage aide gave US information in a plea deal, court files show. Files do not spell out nature of information George Cottrell handed federal agents after his arrest on money laundering charges. A former aide to Nigel Farage, who was arrested on money laundering charges last year, gave US federal agents information. Who the hell was the banks he worked for? Let's do the maths here, people. Let's do the maths here. Who was the banks he's worked for? Let's look at it. Credit Suisse. I don't know who Banca Privada Diodora is. Sounds very swampy to me. Credit Suisse and JP Morgan. And this guy hands over information on them to the feds. Right? George Cottrell, a Briton who was arrested in the US last summer after attending the RNC convention with Farage, the former UKIP leader, received a sentence that was on the low end of the sentencing guidelines used to determine such cases, even though the Arizona prosecutors in his case said they had evidence to show Cottrell had shown clear intent to engage in criminal activity in the past. A court document filed by the prosecutors in February, which had not previously been reported in detail, advised the judge in the case to offer Cottrell a lighter sentence because he had been willing to provide federal agents additional information after his arrest. It gets deeper. So, you know, my comments were, so Cottrell flipped to get a leaner sentence from the FBI. Wonder what UK swamp goodies he handed over to the FBI. Because as well as the banks, this guy is quite clearly a part of the UK swamp. So what exactly information did he hand over to the FBI? This led to him this is from this article here, which is, did I keep it up there? No, I didn't. This was an article on Cottrell from LinkedIn. This right here. In fact, I think it was it Rittenbuck and yeah, it was an interview with the Telegraph that Cottrell did. And this is a piece from it here. This led to him, aged just 19, helping set up multi-billion-pound private offices in Mayfair, for a well-known international family. I wonder who the well-known international family was that Cottrell was helping set up in Mayfair. I wonder who it was. This guy is setting up an international family. That means, you know, a globalist family. Whether it be the Bloodlines, whether it be Rothschild, I don't know. Could be a name that we don't know, but he was setting up, obviously, a wealthy international family. Very strange, very strange. And then this is... Okay, this is from another article. And I'm going to actually, do you know what? I'm just going to read this article here. This is another great article. Daily Beast. I think they were trying to like expose Trump and the good guys, but ended up exposing the bad guys. Because you remember, it was the Daily Beast where I got all the information from on the band. You know, those 3 articles about the band: Comey, Trump, Giuliani, and so forth. Meet Posh George, the shady money man tangled up with Brexit, Russia, and Trump. Now again, put your filter on that Trump is an FBI informant. Okay, wears a wire everywhere he goes. To the point now where the lawyers don't even want to hang out with him. Okay. Why did Nigel Farage take a dark web fraudster to the Republican convention? That's a very good question. If Farage knows Trump's an FBI informant, why did Farage take Cottrell to the RNC where Trump was? Don't take much to figure it out that Trump and Farage caught them all. But we're going to go further in this rabbit hole. And what did this young money laundering maven tell the feds when they busted him? When Nigel Farage and Mr. Brexit watched Donald Trump accept the Republican Party's presidential nomination at the convention last year, he had an extremely unlikely companion. His closest aide on the trip was an offshore investment expert who had boasted on the dark web about his ability to launder money illegally in and out of the United States. The aide, George Cottrell, was busted at Chicago's O'Hare Airport on his way home to London on July 22nd, 2016. He would later plead guilty to participating in a scheme to advise money laundering services on a Tor network black market website. With questions being raised about dark money influence on Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, all of this begs the question: who was this criminal operative chosen to accompany Farage at the RNC, where he met with some of Trump's best-known boosters, including Newt Gingrich and Roger Stone? It was reported earlier this year that Farage is a person of interest in the FBI's Russia-Trump probe. Farage caught them all, right? He appeared alongside Trump at a rally in Mississippi in August 2016 and was one of the first foreign politicians to visit Trump Tower after the shock election victory. As well as Cottrell's advertised ability to transmit money across borders without detection, he was well versed in the world of offshore and cross-border banking. Despite having no political experience, this was the man, aged just 22 at the time, Farage chose to run his office at the height of the battle for Brexit. He was also the co-director of Brexit fundraising for UKIP. Cottrell is young to have developed such knowledge of international finance, but then again, he was first registered as the director of a business, Upsilon Investments, 6 years ago while he was still at high school, a high school age kid, alongside an offshore director based in the British Virgin Islands, according to records lodged with Companies House in London. Before entering his guilty plea, Cottrell changed his names to George Cottrell. He told the US authorities this was intended to distance his previous involvement in certain political activities. It didn't work. Some of those who saw him running around for Farage while working at the pro-Brexit party thought of Cottrell as a swashbuckler, a player who remained popular in Farage's clique, not least because he was known to be extremely generous at the bar. Others say he was a serious operator. He was a very smart cookie, very clever chap. When I was campaigning with him, he was erudite and had all the attributes going for him, said Nigel Sussman, the commercial director of the pro-Moscow group Westminster Russia Forum and a former UKIP candidate. He was very well connected, Sussman told the Daily Beast. Cottrell has worked for a number of banks, including a most recent role helping high-net-worth individuals shift their money across borders. He also claims he has been working as a consultant in the financial intelligence unit of an intelligence agency for over a year when he joined UKIP, in a senior role that he undertook for free. I don't think he has ever been paid a bean by the party, not a single bean, said a party official. A UKIP insider said he was remarkably effective and knowledgeable for his age. He's entirely personable, entirely likable, a great fun figure, very impressive getting things done, he said. He brought us skills of immense chutzpah and phenomenal self-confidence. Known as Posh George by Farage and his entourage, Cottrell was the nephew of Lord Hesketh, a former Conservative Party treasurer, aka UK Swamp, who later defected to the more radical right-wing UKIP. His mother, Fiona Cottrell, was reportedly a former girlfriend of Prince Charles. After Cottrell was released from federal prison in the US, former UKIP and party supporter William Cash wrote a sympathetic profile for the Daily Telegraph. As part of a detailed interview, it offered an account of how Cottrell got mixed up in dark web fraud that was radically different from the sworn testimony he gave in court. The article claimed he was approached at his bank by two American businessmen who wanted to sell their property portfolio. His guilty plea, by contrast, admitted that he had offered illicit money laundering services on a Tor site. While the interview seemed keen to paint a more understanding picture of Cottrell, a young man who got in trouble after struggling with gambling, it does also fill in some of the questions around why Cottrell would prove useful to Farage. It was apparently not just his family connections that secured his job. He was said to have learned about the murky and complicated world of shadow banking, secret offshore accounts and sophisticated financial structures while he worked at a private bank. It was these skills that landed Cottrell an unpaid role at UKIP, according to Cash, who explained that Cottrell went on to work for an offshore private bank, which was under investigation by the US authorities as a foreign financial institution, a primary money laundering concern. Let's go down to here, because this is where we're going to go next. So, Cottrell isn't just the man that got taken to Trump and ended up getting arrested and spent 8 months in jail. He's not just a man whose father was friends with Prince Andrew and his mother was connected to Prince Charles. He's not just a man that was connected to Credit Suisse and JP Morgan. No. He's not just a man that handed over information to the FBI to get a lighter sentence. No. There is a whole lot more to Mr. Cottrell. Cottrell is listed as one of just 71 followers of Moldicon Bank, a controversial Moldovan bank that was alleged to be at the very center of the Russian laundromat scheme that laundered billions in illicit funds. Billions in illicit funds from Moscow through fraud-rigged state contracts and tax evasion. Some of those laundered state funds reportedly went to pay foreigners who were acting on behalf of the Kremlin, such as the leader of a small Polish political party who was later arrested on charges of spying for Russia. And we're going to look at this. The Russian laundromat exposed. This is what Cottrell, the guy connected to everything I previously said, was connected to. The Russian laundromat exposed. Yes, folks, this is real information, not clickbait, not fantasy. 3 years after the laundromat was exposed as a criminal financial vehicle to move vast sums of money out of Australia, journalists now know how the complex scheme worked, including who ended up with $20.8 billion and how, despite warnings, banks failed for years to shut it down. The Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, a very good Twitter page for news updates of crimes around the world, broke the story of the laundromat in 2014. But recently, the reporters of OCCRP and Novaya Gazeta in Moscow obtained a wealth of bank records, which they then opened to investigate reporters in 32 countries. Their combined research for the first time paints a fuller picture of how billions moved from Russia into and through the 112 bank accounts that comprised the system in Eastern Europe, then into banks around the world. Reporters can now say that much of the money ultimately found its way to Russian businessmen who own groups of companies involved in construction, engineering, information technology, and banking, all held hundreds of millions of US dollars in state contracts, either with the government directly. It's an important part to remember that. Either with the government directly, i.e. the US Swamp, or with state-owned entities. They are named in this project, and their spending sprees on fancy autos, prep school fees, furs, and electronics are revealed. Law enforcement in Moldova, Latvia, the United Kingdom, and Russia continue to investigate the laundromats, but attempts to bring those responsible to justice and to recover the money have been hampered in part by the reluctance of Russian officials to cooperate. Money entered the laundromat via a set of shell companies in Russia that existed only on paper, and whose ownership cannot be traced. Some of the funds may have been diverted from the Russian treasury through fraud, rigging of state contracts, or customs and tax evasion. Money that might have helped repair the country's deteriorating roads and ports and modernize the healthcare system or ease the poverty of senior citizens was instead deposited in a Moldovan bank. 6. At the end of the laundromat, money flowed out for luxuries for rock bands touring Russia and on a small Polish non-government organization that pushed Russia's agenda in the European Union. It is run by Mateusz Piskorski, a Polish pro-Kremlin party leader arrested for spying for Russia. Mihaly, some name I'm never going to be able to pronounce, got paid too. The Hungarian-born, California-based psychology professor is noted for naming the psychological concept of flow, a highly focused mental state. I just want to add, by the way, that as much as China infiltrates the Western world, as does Russia, yeah, we can all have this pretty little picture of how Putin is taking down the Western world swamp, but let it also be known that just like China, Russia, the Russian government, and its oligarchs try to infiltrate the Western world just the same as China does. That is a fact. Well-known companies unwittingly took part when beneficiaries used their laundromat money to buy goods and services. Here's where it gets interesting. Here comes Mr. Wire himself, Donald J. Trump. This is great. South Korea's Samsung received laundered money, as did the Swedish telecom company Ericsson and the toolmaker Black & Decker. In the United States, a $500,000 went to Total Golf Construction, Inc., the company that boasts of renovating a Donald Trump golf course in the Cayman Islands in the Grenadines. Now, I haven't done the research yet because I run out of time today, but I wonder if there's been some arrests come out of that with regards to Total Golf Construction. I wonder if anyone from Total Golf Construction ended up going to jail, because Mr. Wire Trump probably had wires up around the golf course when this Total Golf Construction was coming to town. Again, I know, I just want to show you the end of the thread here. The end of the thread here, where I will read it out. South Korea Samsung received laundered money, as did the Swedish telecom company Ericsson and the toolmaker Black & Decker in the United States. $500,000 went to Total Golf Construction, Inc., the company that boasts of renovating a Donald Trump golf course on Cayman Island in the Grenadines. A large Japanese electronic manufacturer got $576 from the laundromat in its Austrian branch on behalf of a British company run by a Russian criminal, Sergei Mahin. And then I put, looks like Carlos, because obviously this is just Carlos here. Right? This is Carlos. Carlos seems to wander into situations and people just end up getting arrested. It's not Trump. This is Carlos. This isn't Trump. Carlos will happen to be in the same room as people having certain conversations, and next thing you know, people are getting arrested. Some people have a vicious rumor going about that Carlos may be wearing a wire. I'm just saying. Let's go back to this article here. And this is a worldwide maze of payments. So if you look at this, so between January 2011 and October 2014, 20.8 billion from 19 Russian banks was laundered. The money went to 5,140 companies with accounts at 732 banks in 96 countries. How was this scale of criminality possible? How did it work? The laundromat was ingenious. Organisers created a core of 21 companies based in the UK, Cyprus and New Zealand, and run by owners and a number of Russian companies. Sorry, because my phone is going off like crazy here. They created a fake debt among some of these core shell companies and then got a Moldovan judge to order the Russian company seeking to order the funds and pay the debt to a court-controlled account. Molding Conbank in Moldova held these accounts. The companies involved with the fake debt also had accounts at the same bank. Soon, Molding Conbank was deluged with cash sent in from the Russian companies. About 8 billion was then withdrawn directly from these accounts in Moldova and spent around the world. Meanwhile, nearly 13 billion was transferred to Trasca Komerca Banka in Latvia. Some of the money disappeared into the maze of these same shell company accounts. Trasca Komerca Banka's location in the European Union made the transactions less likely to be questioned by other banks. The money was now considered clean European money that could be spent on anything the Russians wanted. The system worked well enough to launder 20.8 billion, which can be seen in a database showing who received the money. So here we go. This is who received the 20.8 billion. Who we got here? Western Trading, International Brownfield. Distributing the money between 2011 and 2014, the 21 shell companies fired out 26,746 payments from their various Trasca Komerca Banka and Molding Conbank accounts. The payments went to 96 countries, passing almost without obstacle into some of the world's biggest banks. This, my friend, is called money laundering. And remember, this guy, George Cottrell, was involved in that. The same guy, may I remind you, the same guy that was baited by Farage to go to the RNC. I don't find it a coincidence that this guy got stung in 2014 and finally in 2016 the FBI pulls him in. Yeah? I don't find it a coincidence. This is the same guy whose parents were friends with Prince Andrew and Prince Charles, or whatever you want to call him now, King Charles, whatever suits you, who was also connected to Credit Suisse and JP Morgan. Credit Suisse is the ones hitting the shitter right now. It's JP Morgan, one of the swampiest banks going, that is bailing many of them out. And then to top it all off, this guy passed a ton of information to the DOJ in 2017 when facing his charges so he could get lesser charges, who is then also involved in one of the biggest money laundering operations from Russia. I do not find it a coincidence at all. So there you go. I'm going to go further into this. In terms of research. But if you want to see UK Swamp that got caught by Trump and Farage, he's right here. This is UK Swamp. Forget the big names. This guy right here is UK Swamp. And he got caught by Trump and I believe Farage. That's my thoughts. Trump knew who this guy... Farage knew who this guy was. And he knew he was taking him to the biggest bait of all, Trump. And then gets nabbed by the feds. So there you go. That is quite the journey from a simple trip to the RNC to ended up spending 8 months in jail. And the only reason that the Cottrell spent 8 months in jail and not longer was because he turned over a load of information, quite potentially, on the UK swamp, Russian swamp, US swamp, all over to the feds. And conveniently now, you're seeing the very banks that Cottrell dealt with, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan's, all having a very, very, very hard time right now. Interesting stuff. But again, I make my point. That is the UK swamp. That somehow, as usual, involves Trump. It also involves Farage. Same Farage, who, by the way, is now planning to work with Boris Johnson to, take on the swamp and really deliver Brexit in the future. And the same Boris Johnson, by the way, that I believe has been working with Trump the whole time. So we'll see what happens on that one. Now, my friends, I have now been going for 2 hours. I am going to go and watch America's Mayor with Rudy Giuliani. So I am going to bid you a very good night. I want to thank everybody for joining me. To the guys over in Rumble, I think at one point we had like 36 watching over on Rumble. Thank you very much. Reform Party. Oinka Reform. Thanks to the guys over in Rumble for checking out. How we doing over in YouTube? Yeah, a couple watching in YouTube. Cool. I wonder if they'll shut me down afterwards. Where we at with with Foxhole? Have a look here. There's there it is. There we go. Oh, thank you very much, NX17, for dropping a cookie. Much appreciated, my friend. Much appreciated. Yeah, there we go. And thanks to the crew over in DLive. Thank you very much. We're gonna get on out of here. I hear Rudy calling me, so I need to go check out Rudy's show. You guys are awesome. Keep supporting the shows that do the research. If you do want to donate to the show and my work, do so via my Ko-fi.com app that comes up on the screen there. Also, it's at the bottom of the screen. You can follow me on Twitter, Truth Social, Telegram. That's really, and locals. And I need to do more with locals. It's just I don't get time with work. I just don't get time with work. And if you missed anything in the show, always check the replays out on Rumble. I always upload the Rumble replays the next day after the show as well. Right, let's get out of here. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. We're going to go out with Trump the Establishment because this message still stands strong. I think Trump made this video to coincide with his run for 2024 because this will be the most important election that Americans running. I know Trump has already got this one. Just by the fact of how much is playing out right now. So make sure you listen to the words in this, the message that Trump gives. You guys are all awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great night, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another four-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction
he told
of
us
US
back in
sovereignty
2016
in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors.
Honestly, she will be locked up.
The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media. the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, 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 and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever is necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented. And the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefit of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.